film.
Are we live? I think we are. Wow. I got DJ Dallas here. This is August 10th, 2023. It's the day after the passing of Robbie Robertson. We were getting ready to see him at the Crossroads Festival. It was going to be over at LA Live area. And we just got the news yesterday, as you did, passing of music legend Robbie Robertson. He meant a lot to the both of us. I'm glad I got a chance to tell him in person that he inspired me to play electric guitar and just totally inspired my taste in music. After I saw The Last Waltz, it just changed everything for me. I went from a, top 40 pop music, AM radio listener to, the music of the band and all this, all the Clapton and Dylan and all the people that were featured in the Last Waltz movie. Today we're going to basically focus on Robbie Robertson's career and just talk about a few memories of him. Unfortunately, Robbie Robertson passed. We had a question there. He passed away yesterday. Unknown illness. We're not really sure what happened, but he'd been suffering for some time, according to the report his family gave. And what a great guitarist. He started out when he was about 16 in Toronto. He decided he was a man with a mission. I remember him talking about that. And he joined the Hawk, Ronnie Hawkins band. And then later on, backed Bob Dylan in 1965, 66 era when Dylan went electric and started a musical revolution. And he influenced the Beatles too, the way they dressed in the Hey Jude album with the hats and the beards and the suits. It was a little bit of a nod to the band. And Clapton wanted to join, but they already had a lead guitarist, Robbie Robertson. It would have been cool if they would have let him join for at least a year or two. But they didn't want to have these headliners. They wanted to be their own group, and they decided to go off on their own with the music from Big Pink. We'll get more into the band later, but in Last Waltz, 1976, that was Robbie Robertson's supposed last time ever to play. But Dallas found an amazing recording today. March 1st, 1978, there was a Rick Danko concert at the Roxy, and he invited with him the four members of the band. That was the last time the band played together. They played 3 songs towards the end. I never knew any of this. I thought they never got together, all 5 of them. But this man is amazing at finding rare information about musical performers. So you can see it on YouTube. It's March 1st, 1978, Rick Danko at the Roxy. Very cool. They were playing Shape I'm In, The Weight. What was the other one?
Stage Fright.
Stage Fright. See, the man with the stage fright. Really, really cool. So, that was the real Last Waltz. It took place in Hollywood, not at Winterland. The last time they all played together. All right. Well, without any further ado, we did get to Dallas and I met Robbie Robertson. We were sitting in the front row at Barnes and Noble's maybe about 6 or 7 years ago when he wrote the Hiawatha book. But we did get some items autographed. And I regret not getting the Last Waltz autograph, but Dallas reminds me, Robbie did sign a lot of my stuff, so I'm not going to be upset about that. But I think let's show you this one here. This is Robbie Robertson's first solo album. This came out in the 80s, I believe. 87. And he signed it. Can you believe that? Robbie Robertson signed this. And I thought the music was amazing. It was just so different, and he was just creating this whole new landscape. He was always on to the next thing, you know. He he kept moving forward, and this album really told a story. It was a landscape. Every time I hear it, I hear something different about it. Did have U2 on it, Testify. Wasn't that the song? I believe so. And there was a tribute to Richard Manuel called Broken Arrow, Fallen Angel, I think. Fallen Angel was the song he dedicated to Richard Manuel. Really cool album. I'll let Dallas show you. We have the Storyville album was his next,
Right.
the next album, next solo album that came out. I believe that was the early '90s or late '80s, something like that. He we got him to sign this. It's pretty rare. It's like a spoken word where Robbie Robertson explains the Storyville, and I'm sure Robbie Robertson gets a lot of things to sign, but he was like taken aback when he was looking at that. He's like, "What is this?" And he signed it. He was really gracious.
You had seen this album before.
Yeah, that existed. It's a very cool. I mean, Robbie Robertson is a wonderful storyteller, both in music and just being able to tell the story. He's just was such a great storyteller. And let's see what's coming up next on his solo solo CD. This one here is one of his post 2000. This is 2011. It's Robbie Robertson, How to Become Clairvoyant. If you want to know, here it is. It'll tell you everything. What's cool about this? This was a Best Buy exclusive. It comes with a bonus disc featuring demos and bonus tracks. A song called Houdini. Wow. Features performances from Eric Clapton, Steve Winwood, Trent Reznor. He always managed to get the respect of other musicians and really worked with a lot of people, influenced a lot of people. He was part Native American. His mother was Native American, and he later in his career he paid homage to his Native American heritage. Here is Robbie Robertson and the Red Rose Ensemble. Music for the Native Americans. There you go. And he has like these Native American musicians singing and playing musical instruments on there. Here's another one from his heavily influenced by the Native American music, the Underworld of Red Boy. You're a fan when you own that one right there. Dallas is more familiar with the band, and I think we're going to do another video about Robbie Robertson with the band. But this one here is the Underworld of Red Boy. This was, I would believe, somewhere in the '90s. It also had a bonus track, Take Your Partner by the Hand. 1998 was the year this came out. And let's see, this is his Classic Masters, Robbie Robertson. I don't know if you've seen this one. It's kind of like a greatest hits. He also did one called Testify, or right? Was it Testimony? Testimony. He had a greatest hits. Well, grab that book. That was one of the books. The album kind of looks like this, and it has his greatest hits on it. It has things that are kind of a little bit better, well known than this album. I mean, I'm a big fan. I hadn't heard of most of these songs, like Golden Feather, Peyote Healing, Ghost Dance. It was kind of focusing on a lot of his Native American work. And so right here, Testimony, I got to see him at the Orpheum Theater. That was, I would believe, maybe about 6 or 7 years ago when he wrote this book. And he autographed it. Isn't that cool?
Wow.
And he talked all about, you know, how his time with Bob Dylan, how he was, you know, in the recording studio when Bob Dylan recorded Like a Rolling Stone. Somebody said, "Do you want to meet this guy?" And he saw him playing, you know, electric, and it just blew his mind. And Robbie Robertson was asked to join Bob Dylan on his tour. I believe it was the European tour, and you know, they would get booed, and you know, Dylan would say, if they booed, just play louder, you know, just keep going. And finally, 8 years later, when Bob Dylan and the band got together, it was one of the most requested concerts that Before the Flood tour of all time. It was like a Guinness Book of World Records at the time. So I guess the world caught on to folk rock, you know. And Dylan went electric. That's kind of the era that I was more interested in. I liked his acoustic stuff and his folk stuff, but I really liked Bob Dylan going electric. So Robbie Robertson was all a part of that musical revolution. They knew they had something, even though the audience wasn't too sure of it. But yet again, here's his signature. I think I showed it before, but I don't know if I got a good shot of it. Very distinctive. This one's a little combination of handwriting and printing. It looks like he printed his first name, but did some handwriting on the last one. What other? He did a lot of soundtracks. You know, worked with Martin Scorsese, and here's some that you might, you know, he did Raging Bull and Gangs in New York. But here's some albums you might not have known he did. Jimmy Hollywood. Robbie Robertson, that's right. He did a track on here, Let the Good Times Roll, with Cassandra Wilson. So if you want to hear these songs like The Far Lonely Cry of Trains, Bad Intentions, you got to buy the soundtracks. They're not on any other Robbie Robertson. I'm a fan. Are you guys convinced yet? All right. Here's Any Given Sunday, Volume 2. Okay. I almost got him to sign it, but he was only signing a couple items, so I deferred to his first solo album. But here is Robbie Robertson did the music. I mean, there's so many soundtracks. He's working on it. He worked, his latest was another Martin Scorsese film about Native Americans. That one is yet to come out, but this one has Amazing Grace, Out of the Blue. I wonder if that was the song he did on The Last Waltz Suite. You never know. Anyway, Any Given Sunday, Robbie Robertson worked on that one. We got any more soundtrack? I think we got a vinyl soundtrack there at the King of Comedy. This is one.
Scorsese.
Martin Scorsese movie. It was starring
De Niro.
Robert De Niro, King of Comedy. It was. I remember seeing this movie, and what was most notable was the. He did a lot of soundtracks. What was most noticeable about this one, or notable, was Van Morrison and Robbie Robertson. They did a song called Between Trains. Great song. Only appears on this soundtrack. It's, Between Trains. Robbie Robertson, Van Morrison. Great combo. And there's another Van Morrison song on here, Wonderful Remark. It's got Back on the Chain Gang, but his contribution, Between Trains, very memorable. So you have to go out and actually buy these soundtracks or find them on YouTube in order to hear this stuff. There was another album. I believe if you find a very rare album somewhere, you shouldn't wait around to see if you find it again, because I've never seen it before or after. This one is Mary Turner, Off the Record, and it's an interview with Robbie Robertson. Anytime you get a chance to hear Robbie Robertson do an interview, listen to it, because he's such a wonderful storyteller, and the tone of his voice was just incredible. So yeah, Westwood One radio. This was just available. I think DJs were supposed to give these back after they used them. They weren't supposed to sell them to record stores, but a lot of them did appear in record stores and people's personal collections. But that's pretty cool. It was off the record interview. It's a double album of, and they would play songs and interview the different artists. I think Mary Turner was either on KLOS radio or she might have been on KMET, but it was syndicated on the Westwood One radio network. All right, what else do we got here that's interesting? In the last waltz, he brought a lot of musical influences on stage with him. And Neil Diamond was there. A lot of people know, what was Neil Diamond doing there? Well, he was in 1976, around the time of the last waltz. Robbie Robertson was producing the Beautiful Noise album, which is all about Tin Pan Alley, the singer-songwriters in the 60s. So he wanted to bring that out, and so that's why Neil Diamond was at the last waltz, and that's why he produced that album that was all about the singer-songwriter movement. Let's look at his latest solo album. This is a library copy. Don't worry, we were able to obtain this very, very wonderful library copy, and the album is called Cinematic. And the interesting thing about this, I think he might have painted this too. I'm not sure. It looks like it could be.
Is there Van Morrison's on that? I thought so.
Maybe, yeah, that's a good point. I think Van Morrison's here. I unfortunately don't have all the album credits available, but it has Once We're Brothers on it. Does that sound familiar? This came out around the time 2019 when the movie came out. That was all about the band. Once We're Brothers, the brotherhood of the band, and that song is on his last solo album called Cinematic. So you might want to check that out. The music never wavered. It was always good. And this album was a really nice chance to hear Robbie Robertson's final musical masterpieces. So if you ever get a chance to do that, and please go to your local library. Somebody's got, I always check out music, and then they tell me, we do have books here too, sir. It is a library. So what else we're going to show? Some of his books, maybe. That he was involved in children's books. That's right. This is an autographed copy, the Robbie Robertson story. He didn't actually write it, but it was written about him.
It's by his son.
His son, Sebastian, who we got to meet. Very nice guy. He was working on a lot of projects with Robbie Robertson, especially some of these books that we're going to show you. This one was at Barnes & Noble's, signed by Robbie and his son, Sebastian. And it's really cool. Rock and Roll Highway. It tells the whole story of, the influences of Big Pink and the different bands that may have influenced Robbie Robertson. And, it's just a really cool book. When Dallas has a child, he said he's going to read this to him. Rock and Roll Highway. That's right. What else? The one that Dallas went to it was a book signing at Barnes and Noble's probably about 8 years ago. This was Hiawatha. Again, dedicated it to Dallas and Jerry. Hey, we were in the front row there.
That was cool, man.
I remember asking Robbie a question. I said, why the guitar? Why did you pick all the instruments, the guitar? And he said, because the guitar is sexy. I was expecting something more cerebral, but the man, spoke his mind. All right. Hiawatha and the Peacemaker. This is I believe, a true story about a Native American who came and made peace.
Comes with the CD. I wonder
It
what's
comes
on
with
that.
the CD. We haven't listened to the CD, but we would like to. Hiawatha, and it says
I think he's just reading the book.
produced by, maybe there's some vocals on there, and there's some guitar, bass. Robbie Robertson plays on there. I think he might tell the story. It's you know, his his family was on the Six Nations of the Grand River Indian Reservation, and a child uh, author named David Shannon was there too. He's the guy that illustrated it, and I believe it helped him write some of it. So, what was it? The David books or
No
something?
David,
No
yeah.
David. I don't know if you ever were familiar with them, but this was a really nice, nicely illustrated and told story about Hiawatha the Peacemaker. I highly recommend you getting a chance to read that. And this book here was the first time I saw Robbie Robertson, and it was also written about, I would say, close to 10 years ago, legends, icons, and rebels. And it tells all about, all these influences. And here he signed it, him and his son signed it. And it tells all about the influences that these musicians had on the world and on Robbie Robertson, Johnny Cash, the Beatles, Louis Armstrong, great pictures. And it tells, gives you a couple pages of the highlights and
Includes a CD.
the CD, the contributions. Very interesting book. I thought he was going to work on Legends 2,
Yeah.
but I don't know if it ever came out. He was talking about it. This is the only one I remember coming out. It's 2 CDs on there. I think he includes some of the music of the legends that he includes in here. And these guys really, I learned a lot. And I taught a music appreciation class for middle school at LA Unified. And I used this book as a basis for it. I went through all these artists, Bob Marley, and all the ones that he mentioned that really, really influenced music. And he should have been in there too. He was being humble, but it was a great book. It's something really a beautiful legacy there. Chuck Berry, Bob Dylan,
The
Beatles, Billie Holiday. It just goes through the gamut of musical influences. So yeah, that's another book I highly recommend. And one day I was just going through Barnes and Nobles, going through the CD sections. Look what I found. That's right. I know this is not a Robbie Robertson solo album, but it's the band, the Academy of Music. And this album had a lot of incarnations. It started out as Rock of Ages, and then it went to a deluxe Rock of Ages that was released on CD in the 2000s. And then they released the Academy of Music. I think Bob Dylan was on there. It was New Year's Eve, probably around 1971. And great, excellent recorded. He used a horn section, I believe, for the first time.
Wow.
Howard Johnson, some of these guys on horn. So if you like the sound that the band did in The Last Waltz with the horn section, this is kind of like where it came from, that whole
71.
1971 live. So I think I would eventually like to get the deluxe version, because you've got like more songs, and I think there was a couple nights there included. It's like the whole performance of the Academy of Music. And I did promise you guys in the description a video. There's a bunch of movies. He was in the movie Carney and all that, but I thought this one had more to do with his musical.
I have to watch this one.
Yeah, this is his career at VHS. Going Home. It was award winning according to the box there, and it tells his whole story. He narrates it. It's very well done. I think there were other musicians featured in that series on other videos. There was a Jackson Browne Going Home, I believe. I'm not sure if it's the same company or not, but this is all about Robbie Robertson. It's out of print, and it really shows how you know, in the last waltz, he had a great stage presence. He had a movie star qualities, and he did get into acting a little bit too. He was in some movies. I mentioned Carney. I'm trying to think what else he was in. I know he did soundtrack for the Wolves document. I mean, he was just everywhere. If you really look for him, you'll find his works. But anyway, did you want to say anything to?
I'd have to check out his solo stuff because I'm very familiar with his work with the band, but it seems like missing out not listening to his solo work. He got a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah, and his voice is pretty cool too. You know, like I don't know why he. Hi Tanya, I'm glad you're watching with us. I don't know why Robbie Robertson didn't sing more in the band. There's only a few examples of Robbie doing lead vocals. Out of the Blue was one. What was the other one? Christmas Must Be Tonight. That was Rick Danko, I think. But he did a version of that on Scrooged. Wow. On the Scrooge soundtrack, Robbie sang lead vocals on that song. But yeah, he had an interesting voice, and then sometimes you hear that voice, that high-pitched voice in the band, you know, in the background. That was Robbie, you know, kind of between just weaving it in and out, and you know. But yeah, he had a cool voice. It wasn't a conventional voice, you know. Right. I think his guitar is probably more well known, but he was definitely the center of that group with songwriting and guitar playing and, you know, just getting everything together. And but yeah, well, maybe we'll do a follow-up video after you hear more of his solo solo. There's a whole world of it out there. And wow, we did almost 26 minutes here, so I think we're ready to maybe regroup, and I'll start pulling some of the band stuff. We got a lot of rare band recordings and albums and things like that to show you. So thank you guys so much for watching. I know Robbie Robertson is a true legend, and I think, you know, unfortunately, he wasn't. I know he was in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and all that, but I don't think he was given enough accolades. Even though Rolling Stone magazine said he was the 59th greatest guitarist or something out of the top 100. So he did get some recognition there, but I think as time will tell that he has really been an influence on so many people, from the Beatles to Taylor Swift also recognizes the influence of the folk rock music and country, and the way he weaved rock and roll and all these pop and everything into his music. And he will be sorely missed. I just was really I'm still, it's like a member of the family, you know, passed away. It's really been a tough one. But anyway, it's good to be here with the rock and roll community. And we will remind you to keep on listening to the band and Robbie Robertson, and we'll hopefully be back with some more about this man's legacy that he left to the world. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, DJ Dallas. And keep on rocking, everybody. Bye-bye.